All right, welcome back, guys. Today's guest is Boyd Rudy. Boyd Rudy is the new team leader at Keller Williams Real Living. Thanks for coming on today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So you just started in this role, correct?
Like 14 days ago.
All right. So it's exciting to talk to you just because I haven't really had a chance to talk to you. I met you a couple weeks ago, I guess, but didn't really get a chance to learn much about you. So what's kind of entailed in that new position for you?
So basically the team leader role is like the CEO for the office, right?
Okay.
So my job is to kind of oversee the day-to-day operations, bring in new agents, coordinate trainings for them, basically make sure that, not just recruiting, but also re-recruiting our agents too, and making sure that they're happy they have the tools they need, they have the training they want, and that they're getting everything that they can in order to be as successful as possible. Right.
Okay. So kind of a big role as far as like overseeing everything, but like also then probably some coaching, mentoring, human resources.
Yeah. So I'll sit down with our top 20% agents. My responsibility as team lead is to also help them build their business, along with helping just basically anyone in the office with building. Like I just had a phone call before I came in today, asking about short sale and all this stuff. I used to do a ton of them. So I was able to walk that agent through that process, what they need to do, how to approach it. And then, that way they can go out and get the listing.
Right. And was this a newer or an older agent?
They've been in the business for a bit, but, just aren't real familiar with short sales.
Yeah. Most people weren't in 08. So
yeah. Most people, it's funny. We were at a KW function yesterday and they were like, all right, everyone in the room that's, been an agent for less than a year, sit down, less than 2 years. And then, I'm still staying there after they said 20. I'm like, looking around.
That's great. But with that comes a wealth of knowledge. So you said you got in 2000, right?
Yeah. So I got my license in 2000, came from the restaurant industry, like and went and got my real estate license. And really I did that because my mom wanted to get into real estate investing.
Yeah.
So she was pushing me. She brought me, I'm going to date myself here. She bought me Carlton sheets when I was 18,
right.
Like the real estate investing, like that was the go-to back then. Right. So, she kept pushing me to get my license because she wanted to do that. I went out, got my license, and really kind of, struggled for the first 2 years. Right? Just because, I got my license, I went to my brokerage. I thought my friend's mom was going to help me get established and get going and do all those things. And as soon as I got there, she's like, all right, have fun. See you later. And, same thing with the manager there was like, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to sell real estate. He's like, all right, go sell real estate.
Yeah, figure it out.
Yeah. So, it took me a while to really kind of figure it out. And, I did a lot of floor time, a lot of open houses, just trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And at the time I was a 24, 25, whatever I was back then. And so a young kid coming into, listing appointments on, $500,000 houses.
Right.
Not really going to go well if you don't know exactly what you're talking about and don't have that someone teaching you and coaching you on how to approach that. Right.
And they pick up on it really quick.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I started functioning or, working with first time home buyers and really kind of cut my niche there. And that's how I got my feet under me and was doing pretty well on that. And then, my mom and I were talking about the investing thing. We purchased a, investment property together.
Yeah.
And kind of got into that world and I kind of stepped out of the retail for a while and did a couple of houses with them and basically told the contractor, hey, I didn't know anything about building a house at all, like nothing. Like difference between a hammer and a screwdriver was about the length of my knowledge, right? So I just told the contractor, I said, listen, I'm free labor. You tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah. Oh, so you actually got in there and did some of the work.
So I got in there, I was doing the work, and after 4 or 5 houses, we got rid of the contractor and I just went in and was doing it myself. And then I kind of branched off and started buying my own stuff and did that for a long time. And then eventually I had a lot of people that were like, hey, can you help me buy a house or sell a house? And I could tell them, no, I'm just doing investing. That's it. And then I sat down one day and realized how much money I was giving away in commissions. And I'm like, okay, I need to go back into the retail side.
Right. Do you try to, at some point, did you try to do the balance between both of them?
I did. I tried to do the balance between both of them. And what I learned, one of the key things that I learned actually through that whole process was I was doing the work myself. I would go in, I'd buy the house, I'd go in, do all the fix up, do everything myself. And then I sat down and calculated, okay, how much am I making per hour?
Yeah.
And how much am I saving?
Right.
By not having someone, because I go in and it'd take me 3-6 months to turn a house over.
Right.
Where if I brought a contractor in, it'd take me 30 to 45 days.
Right.
So, and that whole time that I'm in there swinging a hammer, I'm not on the phone looking for that next deal.
Right.
So that was an important lesson for me.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you think you're saving money, but when you actually do the math, you're like, wait a second, it's costing me money.
Right. No, I get it. I flip houses too. I just bought a investment. I say investment property because it's the first one I'm going to try to keep as a rental. And that's the back and forth I do, because I do everything myself, because I come from a construction background. And I just, you know, when I get a quote and I think like, oh man, it's a lot of money, I could do that myself. But like you said, it comes down to that time. So now I'm trying to find that balance where I'm like, okay, this is a lot of money. I can do this myself in a short amount of time. I'll do that. And then the other things like that I have no business doing, like plumbing, I let somebody else do it.
Yeah, it's opportunity cost, right?
Yeah.
You know, what opportunity is that time going to cost you if you spend that time working on something that, you know, you could pay someone else to do. Right.
And then you got pretty heavily into the retail side of it then, because I know you're partners in a couple of brokerages as well, correct?
Yeah. So when I got back into the retail side, right before 2008, I had my own brokerage. We also had a mortgage company, and then we were doing the investing thing, right? So we would buy a house, fix it up, put a tenant in on rent option, lease option, and then fix their credit, get them a mortgage, sell the home to them.
Oh man, that's great.
We had everything in house, the mortgage contractors, the whole nine, right? And then as soon as New Century went down, which was like the first subprime lender to go down, we basically said, all right, that's it. We're closing up shop. We're done. So we shut down the mortgage company, shut everything down. And then from there, we're like, all right, we need to transition. So we transitioned over. I went over to American Country Place at the time and just started working with investors, right? Yeah. And then as I was working with actually one of my best years, I sold a ton of homes for very little money, but you know, I was still able to make money even though you couldn't get a mortgage at the time. It was just cash. So I'm like, all right, cash buyers, investors, let's go. So that's what I did for that first, you know, after everything kind of crashed. Yeah. And then while I was there, they had a recruiting incentive. And they're like, oh, well, if you bring someone in, like, we'll pay you, you know, take X off your bill or whatever it was. Right. So I'm like, well, I'll take advantage of that. And I started doing that. And after I started bringing in a ton of people, they're like, hey, you know, we want you to come on as personnel director and you're going to be in charge of recruiting and doing all that stuff. Yeah. So I helped them expand to 3 offices and went from 150 to about 350 agents in the time I was there. Okay. So that was a very similar role then to what you're stepping into now. Very similar, you know, and, you know, then I left there. I went to another company and was just going to go and just kind of do my thing. And then that company shut down the day that I there was 4 partners or 5 partners. Yeah. They quit. And then the one broker that stayed, it's like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and open a new company. I've got like 6 or 7, or I think there was maybe 10 people total at the time. Yeah. They're like, we're going to go open this up. I want you to help me build this. Yeah. So I went over, helped him, and we went from 10 people to I was vice president of the company when I left, and I was 125 when I left. Okay. So I built that company up. And then at the same time, while I was there is where I met my partner from the brokerage that I owned prior to coming here. Yeah. And she just approached me one day. She was going on vacation. She's like, hey, I'm going to Aruba. I don't have anyone to watch my files. I don't trust anyone else. Can you watch my files? And I was like, yeah, no problem, whatever. And then she said, while I'm gone, I want you to think about us combining teams, because we were the top 2 agents at the time and had 2 competing teams. And she's like, and instead of us competing against each other, let's just work together. Yeah. So, and she was the training director. I was the vice president. So she came back, and well, when she left, I'm like, how cool would it be to have someone be able to watch my stuff and be able to take some time off?
Yeah.
Because I was working 80 hours a week at the time.
Right.
And so she came back, and we kind of sat down and talked about it. And that's where we came up with our company and what we wanted to do. And we actually at the time were just going to combine teams and stay at that brokerage.
Yeah.
And then as we developed our concept of what we wanted to do, we realized we couldn't stay there. We had to go out on our own.
Yeah.
So that's what we did, and did that for 9 years.
Oh, wow.
And then just recently had her buy out my equity in the company, and was looking for something to do. And
nice.
Just kind of, it's funny how it kind of came into play, because I was on my way down to Florida.
Yeah.
I had just helped a friend transition her whole brokerage, to KW. She hasn't announced it yet, but by the time this comes out, it'll be announced.
Nice.
But so I helped her, was helping her with the transition and just negotiating the deal and all that stuff. And then I'm like, maybe I'll come down there. I'll run a team down there and build down there.
Right.
And I got an email from Indeed, because I was recruiting for my old brokerage.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, I watch them, all the other real estate classified ads, right?
Right.
So I got it, and I saw the ad for the team leader position. I'm like, oh, it's kind of interesting. And there was 2 available. And then thought about it, went out and went to the Women's Council of Realtors Christmas thing, right? Started talking with Farron and some other people, and actually didn't even see Aaron there, didn't even know that Aaron was a TL at the time.
Yeah.
So came back, and I'm like, you know what, this might be a good fit. I'll throw a resume in just for S&Gs.
Right.
So sent my resume over, and not even, I don't know, maybe a couple hours later, I got a call from Erin, and she's like, is this a joke? And I'm like, no, it's not a joke. She's like, I really thought it was a joke, because like you're everything that we would want for this position.
Right.
And, so she's like, why don't you come in? We'll talk and go from there. So I came in. I was like, wasn't really sure. I'm like, oh, I'll check it out. And then I knew Erin just from, we both grew up in Plymouth Canton, so we kind of crossed paths, especially she had her business there prior to moving out here. Right?
Yeah.
So I came in, and as soon as I walked in the office, the vibe and the energy is what sold me. I mean, it was everything that when we were first building our company, it was that feel that we had, that everyone was just exciting, collaborative. Everyone's, happy and excited and helping each other out. And that's really like, I'm like, okay, this might actually be a good fit. Yeah. And then as I sat down and talked with Aaron and Dominic more, and then sat in on some of the trainings and some of the mastermind groups, I sat in on the team leader mastermind group. Yeah. And, for that many people producing at a high level that are running high level teams, to sit in one room and just bounce ideas back and forth off each other. Right. Like, you don't find that at other brokerages. Right. Not a lot of ego. Yeah. No ego. Just, hey, this is what's working for me. You should try this, maybe try that. And you don't get that, like I said, in other brokerages. Yeah. It just doesn't happen very often. Like, I would say probably maybe 5% of brokerages out there might have something similar. Yeah. So, and that's really what sold me. Like that was the same vibe and feel that we had when we first opened my last brokerage. Is very similar. Yeah, no, it's great. And that's, it's cool. It's like they don't come from that scarcity mindset where it's like, I can't share this with you because if I share it, then, you're going to do all the business. It's like, man, there's enough for everybody if you can just put it all together with each other. Yeah. And that, I don't understand it. Cause I mean, there's a ton of homes out there. There's enough business for everybody. Like, there's no reason to be scared of losing business to someone else. Right. Like, so to see that in action and being put in place. Yeah. Was, like I said, that's what sold me. Yeah. I can see why she got excited too. Cause like now hearing your background, I'm like, man, you've had so many roles that are the exact thing that you'd want to be doing here. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a perfect fit. It really was. Like, my whole what I love doing is recruiting and coaching and helping people build their business, right? Like I want to take that person that's producing $5 million and turn them into a $10, $15 million producer.
Yeah.
You know, that person that wants to build a team, I want to sit down with them and help them build that team out and do it the right way.
Yeah.
You know, and because I've done it the wrong way. I've been in this business long enough that I've made every mistake that you can think about making. Right. And so now it's great to be able to stop other people from making those same mistakes and say, hey, I tried that. Like you might want to rethink what you're doing.
Right.
And truthfully what I love about Keller Williams is they have the model in place. Like all the stuff I spent years beating my head against the wall trying to figure out, they're like, oh, here you go. Yeah. Do it this way.
Laid out.
It's all laid out and like in a playbook, like ready to go.
Right. No, that's really cool. And that's what, it seems like the cool thing is too, if you can coach somebody and help them from making those mistakes, especially with a newer agent, you know, a lot of times when they're new and they make that mistake, that'll be the mistake that ends their career and they decide this isn't for them.
Well, so it's all about building the right foundation, right? Yeah. And putting the right systems in place and building the right foundation from the start. Really, you know, that's what builds your business. It's like a triangle, right? So if you have a nice base, you're gonna go up and your business is gonna grow. Where if you have an inverted triangle and you don't have a good base, you're gonna topple over. Right. So, you know, it's making sure that people have that good base, that they're building their business the right way. Yeah. Because I've done it the wrong way and I've done it the right way. The wrong way is not fun, and the right way is, you know, sometimes it takes a little bit more time. Right. But it's solid. It's solid. And a good, solid, progressive growth is really what you want in this business. You want a straight, steady line up. You don't want to be going like this the whole time. Yeah. Which, the ups and downs is what also gets a lot of people out of business because they're getting, you know, the highs and then these intense lows. Yeah. And it's scary for a lot of people. Yeah. I've seen it so much, you know, I call them paycheck agents, right? So they get a commission check and then you don't see them around the office for like 2 or 3 months. And then all of a sudden they're back in the office for like, I need a deal. And then, you know, they're working their butts off and they get a deal and then they get another check and then they go back and they're gone. Right. Like the whole key to this business is stacking those checks. So you always have a constant flow of money coming in, because it's not like any other business where you're drawing a salary, right? Right. You know, if you don't sell, you don't eat. Yeah. So you always have to constantly have that money coming in order to have a nice, stable, successful career. Right. Yeah. It's like the pipeline, you know, where you pack it in one end and then wait for that slow drip out the other end. But if you stop feeding it, that drip's going to stop. Yeah. Yeah. You know, you have to build the system, build the funnel, and then just push those people down the funnel to get what you're looking for. Yeah. One thing I wanted to circle back to, because it sounds like you have impeccable timing. So like when you talk, and I don't know if that's just to shorten the story, but it sounds like even in 2008 when that came, like that pivot was incredible, because now you've pivoted into this other thing that still, you know, allowed you to continue in the business and do well. But it sounds like you shut down. Like it seems like you hear a lot of people like, oh, we're just going to ride this wave. We'll see how far we can get. And they hemorrhage money for 2-3 years till they shut down because they're forced to and they're broke. It sounds like you saw the writing on the wall and just said, hey, we're going to shut down and pivot and go somewhere else. Yeah. And that's, you know, it really is the key to the longevity in this business, is to be able to look and see what's going on, see what the trends are, and then adjust to those trends. Because if you don't adjust to what's going on in the market, you're going to die. I mean, you know, when social media came out and Facebook and all that stuff, like there was agents who were like, I'm not getting on Facebook. I'm not doing anything with it. And all of a sudden they saw this huge drop in business, and you saw a lot of the older agents that were against social media either getting out of the business or saying, hey, maybe there's something to this Facebook thing. Yeah. And, you know, the ones that adopted it earlier, the ones that just took off. I mean, we built my old brokerage on social media. Like 100%. Yeah. I mean, how else are you going to reach these people? I mean, it's something that can give you such incredible reach if it's used the right way. I mean, it's crazy not to take advantage of it. Yeah. I mean, my wife got on it and was like, you know, connecting with friends or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'll check this out. And then I'm like, I wonder if I could use this for business. Yeah. And then I started making connections, and I'm like, oh, well, this could work. And then Next thing you know, like I get a couple of Facebook messages a week, like, hey, can you help me buy a house? Can you help me sell a house?
Yeah.
Just because of the business I built, utilizing social media on that. And there's nothing better than just, there's no competition. There's no, if I'm going to get the client, right, or if I'm going to get the listing when they're reaching out to you, you're like, cool. Well, when do you want me
dunk.
When do you want me to come over and sign the papers?
Right. So, and a recruiting tool too, because then you can share your success and you can share these things where people see and they're like, man, I'm struggling. What's this guy doing? All right, I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can get on board with him and maybe learn something.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that I love sharing with people is how you can utilize something that's totally free. Yeah. To create business for you. Like you don't have to spend a ton of money. That's a misconception that a lot of people have. Right. Like I got to buy, $10,000 worth of Zillow leads in order to have success. Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was actually when I was in Austin last week, they were talking about the cost of Zillow, and the average Zillow lead costs an agent $14,000. Wow. So do the math here. Like you're going to be upside down if that's the way that you. Yeah.
Because what's the average commission? Like 9,000 or something like that?
I'm going to guess the average purchase price is probably around 300,000. Yeah. Here in Livingston. So yeah, I mean, you're upside down, but a lot of agents are so like, I got to have Zillow, I got to have it. And then when you sit down and you actually work the numbers to what they actually made versus what it's costing them, it doesn't make sense. Right. When, they can go on Google PPC or they can go on Facebook ads or 8,000 other ways of generating business that are way cheaper than what they're doing. Right. So a lot of it's just having that conversation and looking at, okay, where are you spending your money? What's the return? Right. Most agents don't look at that. Yeah.
Same thing as we were talking about with the construction thing. What's it costing you to get that little bit? It's not worth it.
Exactly. And if you're not sitting down and looking at your numbers on a regular basis and saying, okay, I'm paying this is the return. Is it worth keeping or not? Red light, green light, basically, right? Like, okay, yeah, I'm making money from this. Right. I'm going to keep doing it. The other thing that people make the mistake of is they don't let things go long enough. Yeah. And they're like, oh, well, this isn't working after 60 days. Right. And a lot of time you got to test stuff out for a year. Yeah. Like if you don't do it for a year, you're not going to get a good, a good test result. Yeah. You don't have enough data to really analyze it. Yeah. So it's just making sure that, if you are looking at making a switch on something, doing the research and then letting it go long enough to make sure that it is the right thing, right? That you did make a good investment, or maybe you didn't, right? But
at least now you know, and you have enough data to figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah, I always hear too that some people like when they have that success, like you're talking about, people with spikes and then these lows, and it's like they find something that works. And it works so well, they stop doing it because they just get busy and it's like, man, but you stopped. You took your foot off the gas on the thing that was generating the business.
See that all the time too. Like, and that's really what that is not adjusting your back end to keep up with your front end, right? Yeah. So you got to have the right systems and people and stuff in place in order to take all that busy work off of your plate so you can continue doing what you were doing. Yeah. If your thing is going out and creating videos and doing TikTok and whatever, then you got to have someone doing the admin stuff and making sure that, your day-to-day paperwork and all that stuff is in place. So you don't have to worry about that. And you just keep creating content and going out and going on listing appointments and doing all that stuff. Right.
Leverage all the stuff that's not making you money.
Yeah. Yeah. It's leverage for, and that's really what it comes down to is leverage and leads and leverage. Yeah. Right. Like, okay, I need to create leads. Okay. I got too many leads. I need leverage now. Right. And that really, is the two key components to this business is leads and leverage. Like if you have those two things and know how to utilize them properly, you can do that all day long. Right. And unfortunately, most people don't know when is the right time to leverage. Like when is that? Right. When is it time to make that admin hire? When is it that time to bring in a transaction coordinator or use an ISA or all of those things? Yeah. they don't know because they've never been there yet before, right? They're just, I've always done it this way.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny. I post like a motivational quote every day just to kind of keep my mindset right, but also share it with other people. Right. And, one of the ones I saw today was if you keep doing the same old things, you're going to get the same old results.
Yeah.
So that's been successful for you, but you're going to plateau.
Yeah.
So you need to figure out, okay, what's the next step? Where do I need to go to make that next step up?
Which I found interesting too, because you said you meet with the top 20% of agents, which I thought was really cool because it seems like a lot of brokerages would be like, oh, these guys are good, leave them be, let's focus on these guys that are struggling. But it's like you guys still realize that even though they're the top 20%, there's still room for them to grow. Obviously, they're probably not satisfied with where they're at. That's huge because you can take best practices from them that got them there, share it with the people that are struggling, yet also show them things that they can help grow their business.
Yeah. And, it's some people they're like, hey, I'm good at what I'm selling, but I'd like to have more time to spend with my family and do all that stuff. So sometimes it's not, hey, what can we do to get you more business? Right. It's more, what can we get you to get you more time? Yeah. And a lot of times by giving them more time, they end up making more money.
Right. Which is crazy.
It's crazy. Just, taking that busy work off, it's, adding a showing assistant, right? Like a lot of people, I have this conversation all the time with people and I'm like, okay, if you bring on a showing agent and you're to pay him a salary, and let's say, I don't know, it's $30,000 a year, base salary, right? In order to pay for that, you have to sell $1 million more in real estate, right? Yeah. So how many millions more could you do if you didn't have to go to your inspections, if you didn't have to go to your key exchanges, if you had someone that basically did all of that stuff for you and could go and show buyers while you're showing other buyers are doing other things as well? Like, would you double, triple, quadruple your business?
And you'd really only need to get 3 more to make that up. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And especially when you hear about these people like, oh, I went and showed 14 houses, like the amount of stuff you could have gotten done in the time that it takes to show 14 houses.
Yeah. How many listings could you have gotten?
Right.
If you would have spent all that time working on getting more listings.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things that in conversations that, I like to have with agents because no one had those conversations with me. Yeah. And so now seeing that and knowing that and doing that and being, having built successful teams and brokerages and all that stuff, it's very easy for me to sit down and say, hey, this way is working great for you. Yeah. But maybe if you made this one small tweak, you might be able to get to that next level.
Yeah. And something that seems so obvious to you because you have the experience and you've been through it. Whereas to them, like just hearing, they're like, oh man, like didn't even think about it, Well,
a lot of times too, you're so into it and you're so focused on that an outside set of eyes taking a look at your business and going, hey, these are the things that you might want to consider or changes you might want to make. Yeah. Like you're not going to see that because you're so focused on your day-to-day stuff. You're not looking at that big vision.
Yeah. You got to see it from 30,000 feet and be able to look at it. The other thing I've noticed too, I've talked to a couple agents that are really successful. I mean, just, their numbers are fantastic. And one of their drawbacks is they feel this kind of guilt, not guilt, but responsibility. They're scared to bring somebody on which I think is also good because they do look at it as not like, oh, I need this person to get to this next level. They look at it as, okay, I'm going to be taking somebody that's going to be leaving their job, coming to work for me, and this is how they support their family. And what if I hire them and then I can't do the numbers that I've been doing and I have to let them go? So they look at it with that responsibility, which is great, like I said, but it's like, man, you got to just have faith that you've been doing this and you've been putting up these kind of numbers. Like there's no reason why it shouldn't increase if you bring this person on.
Yeah. And, having run my own brokerage and having, several employees and it's very, you do feel that weight of having responsibility of like, hey, if I don't sell, then these people aren't going to eat. Right. Right. So that is a huge thing. And it can weigh on a lot of people, but at the same time, you have to think of, I like to look at it from the opposite side. Like, okay, if I do take my business to that next level, now I've given this person an opportunity to grow with me.
Yeah.
And now it's an opportunity of growth as opposed to like, you know, they might lose their job if I don't sell, to if I do sell and I do take it to the next level, not only are they going to have this job, but they're going to have more opportunity and be able to make more money.
Right. Which is awesome, because that's what you look at too. I look at it the same way, as far as somebody coming from a job that was, let's say, hourly or low salary, and you give them this opportunity where most people get stuck in that rat race and don't realize there's more to it, you know, where they can think like, well, I got this steady job, I have benefits, I can just ride this out till I retire. But like, I mean, you know as well as I do, those people either A, never retire because they never make enough money to, or they just live in this paycheck to paycheck world, which is terrible. But yeah, like you said, you open up that opportunity where they can get, you know, overrides or percentages of deals. And like, I mean, you could create such an incredible opportunity for them that then they could get educated, and who knows where they'll grow to. They may leave at some point and decide they want to do something in real estate.
Yeah. And that's, you know, one of the great things with Keller Williams is there's so many opportunities for people to go into different roles, the team leader role, that, you know, MCA role, which is a market center admin, and all these other different roles, productivity coaches, and there's so many tools and directions that you can go. You can go into MAPS coaching and doing that. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to not just make money growing a team and selling real estate, but also being a part of Keller Williams and the culture, and then sharing their knowledge as well. So I sat down with my assistant when I brought him in, and I kind of showed him, you know, hey, here's the organizational chart of Keller Williams, and here's all the opportunities that are ahead of you. You know, he's 18 years old. Like, the kid's got the world on a string right now. And I'm like, you could be wherever you want to go in this, just figure out, you know, sit down, figure out where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, and make a plan to get there. And let's see what we can do to get you to that point.
Right. No, that's a really cool opportunity. And I see a lot of people that don't leave, you know, which is awesome, especially in real estate from a retention point. And it's like, I'll see a lot of people shift from different position to different position within the company. But they definitely want to be there. They definitely want to stay. They've just maybe outgrown that position, and then they're moving on to something else, but they love the opportunity. They love the culture, and they want to be a part of it, but it allows them to grow.
Well, that's one thing that Keller Williams is really huge on is, you know, you put someone in a position and maybe that position wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
They're a great person. They're just not a good fit for that position.
Right.
So let's find where they're going to be successful at. And so they utilize a lot of great tools and technology to figure out, like, okay, what's your personality type? What is it that you're good at? You know, in the hiring process, you know, I went through 6 interviews.
Yeah.
You know, and we use a tool called KPA that basically will tell you everything.
Yeah, I did that. It's interesting.
You take that?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just sitting there going, they're like, on a scale of you know, 1 to 10, how true is this? And I'm like, 10.
Yeah.
10.
It kind of blows your mind, because when you're answering the questions the first time, you're like, what's this going to tell me? And then when they read, like, you know, the actual like attributes, you're like, man, there's no denying it. That's me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how accurate that stuff is.
Yeah.
And to be able to take that and utilize that and then say, okay, well, with these traits, like, this would be a good fit. You know, this position might be a good fit versus this one.
Right.
So now you can kind of figure out on that org chart, like, what direction you would go. And even in your day-to-day business, like, it helps us figure out, okay, well, this is what your personality type is. So this might be a better way for you to grow your business.
Yeah.
Than this way. Some people are networkers. Some people are you know, phone jockeys. Some people are social media people, you know, but knowing what that personality type is like really helps us to say, okay, well, this is the path that you should take to grow your business.
Yeah. Know what dials and levers to hit.
Exactly. Because, you know, if you told me that, you know, I had to sit behind a phone and make $200 a day,
right,
I would shoot myself. Like, that's just not me. That's not my personality.
Oh, it's brutal.
But at the same time, like, there's people that are very successful that way.
Yeah.
So it's just figuring out what works for you and your personality type. You know, if you're a networker, like, you should be out at every networking event that around.
Right.
So,
and it figures out what you can't do. Like somebody that's not a networker, you put them in that position and they're awkward because it's not them, which, a lot of people get that misconception like, well, I can't be in real estate because I'm an introvert. And it's like, man, there's a ton of ultra successful realtors that are introverts. They just figure out how to market what works for them.
Yeah. And it's crazy because by nature, I'm actually an introvert. Like I'm very just kind of want to sit behind my computer and do stuff out, create leads and do stuff that way.
Yeah.
But I've learned, through bartending and all that stuff, right? Like you're on the stage, and as soon as you get on the stage, you just flip the switch and you're good to go. And you're Mr. Extrovert. And so learning how to go between the two has definitely helped me connect with agents and show them like, okay, you don't have to be the extrovert in order to grow your business. Right. You can do it this way. Yeah. So
it's funny you said that too, because I was thinking, I've always given that analogy where it was like, you almost had this, when I would bartend, I had like this alter ego. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't me behind the bar. It was like, all right, showtime, boom, you pass that, and you're behind the bar and it's somebody else. And at the time, I didn't know it from like now I know it from all these assessments and things that, okay, I am introverted, but I can do that. Whereas that sometimes you're just like, you see people doing it and you're like, man, why are they so outgoing? And now you realize like a lot of them, it's the same thing. It's just an alter ego. They flip that switch and they perform, but it's not who they are. And it's not who you have to be to sell.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would sit in my car before listing appointments and I go through and I have a whole thing of what I do before. Yeah. Like preparation, just like an actor, right? Like I'm going to go in, I'm going to sit there. I got my playlist that I go through. Yeah. And then from there, then I have to make sure that I practice smiling just so I can make sure that I'm smiling the whole time. Yeah. And, all these small little things that I do prior to going up to the door is, just like an actor preparing. Yeah. And if you can do that and flip that switch, then, you're going to be good to go. Right. So
it's almost a blessing in some ways because it's like when you know that about yourself, it makes you very, very in tune to it. So you really pay attention to a lot of these things. You know what I mean? Like a lot of things I notice as I get older, whereas a lot of people say like insecurity is bad. And I get that to a degree, but I also think it's good in a way because it kind of pushes you. Whereas some people become ultra complacent, or if they're very, very confident and sure of who they are, a lot of those people kind of stop growing because they just feel like, I'm the coolest guy in the world. I don't have to do anything. Whereas a little bit of insecurity kind of pushes you where you're like, oh, I got to get in better shape. I got to do better at this. I got to do better at this. I got to figure out how to do this. So sometimes it's kind of a weapon if you use it right.
Yeah, the people that are self-aware and know what their strengths and weaknesses are, then they can learn how to play to their strengths and then also work on their weaknesses, right? So, okay, well, maybe I'm not good at this thing, whatever it is. Okay, what can I do in order to be better at that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess that's a better word of it, self-aware.
Yeah. So coming to that, basically trying to figure out and coming to that self-awareness point, right? Yeah. Like is huge for a lot of agents because a lot of agents don't take a real good look at them and at themselves, right? Right. They just kind of go along their day, but when you get the KPA and you actually sit there and someone goes through it with you and you're like, wow, that's really is kind of true. Like, then you kind of get that self-awareness of, well, maybe this is something I need to work on, or maybe I need to play to this strength instead of trying to force myself to be this way. Yeah. Because a lot of people are just like square peg, round hole. Yeah.
Especially when it's the things you don't necessarily like to hear about yourself. Like the good things, you're like, oh yeah, it's me 100%. Yeah. But even then the bad things, you're like, yeah, that's me. It takes some time to swallow it, but you're like, no, there's no way around it. That's totally me.
Yeah. I mean, there were some things in my KPA that was like, yeah, that's totally me. But at the same time, I was like, okay, but I know with that thing, I know how to overcome that. Yeah. And it's really figuring out how can I overcome this? Or how can I avoid situations where I have to go utilize this? Right. So And that's where the self-awareness comes from. And that's the beauty of this whole KPA thing is it really helps agents come to that realization of, oh, this is what I'm like, and this is what I should play to or what I need to work on.
Gives you a little more situational awareness. And like you said, it's not even just a work thing. It's like a life thing where you're like, okay, now you're better suited for all parts of your life.
Oh, that's a lot of people have and a lot of the agents and management and that have had their significant others take the KPA. I was just at Team Leader Skills Camp in Austin, and Mark King, the president of the company, was like, "Yeah, I had my second wife take the KPA before we started."
That's awesome. Oh man, that's great.
He's like, "I want to know what I was getting into."
Right. I mean, it sounds like some people would hear that and they'd be like, it's almost like a prenup, but it's like, how does that not make sense? I mean, you're going to spend the rest of your life with this person. Like, you should know what you're getting into.
I mean, to be able to, for someone to take a 15-minute test.
Yeah.
And be able to, and then you to be able to know exactly how that person communicates and that, like, what more better knowledge could you have about someone, like you said, in order to have a great relationship.
Right.
Like, if someone doesn't like, touchy-feely stuff, then you're not going to go that direction with them, and you're just going to get right to the point and say, hey, this is what needs to happen. Right? Yeah.
And it's not even saying like, oh, I'm going to give her this test, and then if I don't like the answers, I'm not going to be with her. But like you said, it gives you an idea of like, okay, these approaches don't work. So instead of butting heads with somebody, you just figure out how to communicate with them better.
It's like the 5 languages of love book, like figuring that out. Like, it took me years and years to figure out, my wife's love that language. Right. And I used to be very like servant, like, go and do the dishes and clean the house and do all those things. And at the end of the day, like, she didn't care about any of that stuff. That wasn't her love language. Her love language was words of affirmation and that. So I had to learn to switch to speak her language. Yeah. And once I did, our relationship got way better. Yeah. So it's the same thing with the KPA, like learning how to communicate with that person.
And all those years you spent doing the dishes.
Yeah. I
didn't even have to do that.
Yeah, I could have avoided that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's on my top 10 of to read lists, which I don't know why I haven't read it yet. I mean, I've been married 11 years, and obviously in any marriage, there's times you butt heads, and I'm like, why don't I just take the time to sit down and read this book? Like, I'd probably realize things where I'd be like, oh my gosh, I've been banging my head against the wall. Like,
all right, I'm going to buy you the book.
Okay.
I'll buy you the book, and you're going to read it, because it's really, it's not like it's a big, thick book. It's very thin. It's a very easy read. But after you've read it, you're like, wow, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
One of the books I like to give agents on my team it's called Exactly What to Say. Yeah. And they make one for agents too. And after you read it, you're like, wow, that totally makes sense.
Really?
It's a great book. And it really just kind of goes over the way you structure what you say to someone. Yeah. And just by tweaking it just a bit, you can get them to, it's a yes or yes conversation, right?
Right.
So, from things like, if I tell you that there's a banana on the table, you can't help but see a banana on the table. Yeah. Like in your head. So
that's so weird, because I'm literally thinking like where you're going to go with this. And as you were saying that, I was picturing a banana on the table.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, so when you're out with a client and you're having a conversation and you're like, oh, well, picture, your dog running and playing in the backyard, or your kids enjoying the swing set or whatever. Like, that client is going to have that image in their head. Yeah. And that might be the difference in them liking the house or not liking the house. Right. Like, them being able to envision themselves and their family in that home. Yeah. So I'll get you that book too.
This is going to work out well for me. But even like you're saying, it's like, and it can go the other way too. Like a lot of, you see a lot of people painting these doomsday pictures of the market and stuff, and it's like, man, if you're an agent and that's the kind of stuff you're presenting to your clients, like it'd be the same situation. You're going to paint this picture where they're like, oh man, I can't do this right now. But it could go the other way too. A lot of people see a ton of opportunity in the market right now, which there is.
Well, yeah. And really what it comes back to is you have to look at the data, right? And look at the data and adjust, don't listen to what the talking heads and, the news is, because it's usually opposite.
Right.
How long have we been hearing about the crash? There's going to be a crash. There's going to be a crash. there's not going to be a crash. We have such a low surplus of inventory that it can't crash. Not only that, everyone's got equity in their homes. So it's not like there's going to be this big rush of foreclosures because people have equity in their homes.
Yeah,
so
they could sell it.
They could sell it and keep their home. So it's a total different circumstance than '08 when, can you fog a mirror? Here's a loan for $1 million.
Yeah.
And they're working at McDonald's.
Yeah. 80-20 loan, one's going to adjust and it's a mess.
Yeah. Yeah. Adjustable rate, going up to 10% and all this other stuff. So, have we slowed down a bit? A little bit, but that's just because rates went up to adjust to hedge off inflation. But, I really looking at the data, those rates are going to adjust down a bit and then we're going to get back to a normal market.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but for me, a normal market is like ideal.
Yeah.
Because as an agent, like there's nothing more frustrating than taking someone to a home. They love the home, they fall in love with it, and then you compete, find out you're competing with 50 other people.
Right.
And if they don't have $100,000 to bring over on top in a suitcase of cash, like they're not getting the house.
Yeah.
And, then you got to go find them another house and another one, another one. I mean, there were some clients that we'd write 7-8 offers until they finally got the one. Right. So to be able to kind of go in and maybe be, the only offer or even one out of 2 or 3.
Right.
Now you've got a better shot, and especially all these people like VA veterans,
right.
I'm a military relocation specialist. So I work with a lot of veterans and trying to get them into a loan or into a home.
Right.
Like it just didn't happen at the time.
Yeah.
Now they're able to get into homes.
Right.
And same thing with people utilizing down payment assistance and all that stuff. Like they weren't able to get in, compete in the market.
No way.
And now in a stable market, those buyers now had the opportunity to go out.
Which is how it should be. I mean, if you're qualified to buy a home and you can afford it, you should by all means have the opportunity to buy one, which is sad when it gets like that. I've had closings where the people were like, man, this is 1.5 years in the making. Like we've been looking for 1.5 years. And I'm like, man, that's a long time.
Yeah. I've same thing with clients, like and it wasn't because they didn't want to buy a home.
Yeah.
They just didn't have that, suitcase full of money that they could bring to the table to compete.
Yeah.
So, we had to figure out a creative way to find the right home and then structure the offer the right way in order to get their offer accepted.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's, in those multiple offer situations, the highest offer isn't always the best offer.
Right.
But a lot of agents don't know that. And so they don't know how to structure a great offer.
Right.
Or the strongest offer they can.
Yeah.
I had people that have taken my clients' offers because even though it wasn't the highest offer, but it was the best offer.
Yeah.
Because I took the time to figure out what was important to the seller
and
then structure it accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know what their situation is.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they need 60 days of occupancy after closing.
Right.
Sure. Fine. Here, if the buyer's willing to give it, then let's give it.
Yeah.
So.
And again, like you said, I mean, it all goes back to communication. Like if you know how to communicate with those people to hit their trigger points, chances are your deal is going to be the best one for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
if you have the knowledge to structure it that way.
Yeah. And, sometimes it's even dumb little things like, 2 free pizzas from the buyer at move out. Right.
Right.
Like, actually I had a deal that I offered that and the seller hated pizza.
Oh man.
So we restructured it and we had tacos and margaritas at the closing. That's awesome. One of the most amazing closings I've ever had. It was so fun.
That's cool.
So, but once again, that was a communication with the agent on the other side. They came back and like, yeah, they hate pizza. And we were like, all right, fine. What do they want? They like tacos. So like, we got that. That's fine.
Yeah.
So
whatever.
Yeah. And it's funny because we didn't have the signatures on the purchase agreement back. And she actually had a cash offer that came back to the table after the highest and best and was like, hey, we'll go $5,000 over what your highest offer is. And the seller said, no, we're sticking with this one.
That's awesome.
So just,
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit of rapport goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really, a lot of times too, that's another mistake that a lot of agents make is they think it's like this whole like me versus you thing. Right.
Right.
And it's not, it's a collaboration. We both, at the end of the day, we both want to get our clients to the closing table and make it a win-win for everyone.
Right.
And that's one of the big things that Keller Williams is big on. That's their number one thing on their whole thing, right?
Win-win.
Win-win or no deal.
Yeah.
So if you can make it a structure and offer that's a win-win for everyone, then you're going to
no brainer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's like one of those things is like so easy. It makes sense. And like, it's somebody who go against it.
Well, like you said, it's all about communication. Where if you're having a conversation with the other agent and they're telling you what's important and you're able to come from a place of collaboration, then you're going to be able to get that deal done. Where, the mistake I see a lot of agents make is they come from a point of like adversity, where they're like, oh, well, I can't tell you that. And you can't do it that way. And at the end of the day, like, yes, it is, you are protecting your client. They're protecting their client, but you don't have to be at odds against each other, right? You can make it to the closing table.
Yeah, you're both trying to accomplish the same thing. You're trying to get a good home for your buyer. They're trying to get a good deal for their seller. Let's make it work.
Yeah, and not only that, but I mean, the next time that you have a closing with that or have an offer with that person, what are they going to think when they're,
right? You're going to meet again.
Yeah, you're going to meet again. So if you were, I'm trying to think of a PG word for it, but if you weren't the best agent to work with on the last transaction, your offer might go to the bottom of the stack.
Yeah, for sure.
Just because they're like, I don't want to go through that again.
Right.
But if you make it a nice, pleasant, easy transaction all the way through and collaborate and work with them, even though there might be some hiccups and things along the way, then they're like, you know what? I had to deal with him and there were some issues, but we worked through it and we were able to make it work.
Right. Yeah. He knows what he's doing. Even with these hiccups, I'm confident he'll get it figured out. And that's like you said, it's like you never know. I mean, the world's small. Like you said, you knew Aaron from back, back in Plymouth. And it's like now you guys work together. I mean, it's, we probably would have never thought that back then when you met her, but like you guys are friends and you probably did deals together and now
we crossed paths. We knew each other from, back then, but I would have never thought that, I'm going to be working in an office out in Brighton and Howell and be working with her 10 years, 20 years later.
Yeah. That's wild. So if you can build those relationships based on like mutual respect and things like that, then it's all going to tie back together at some point.
Yeah. And truthfully, I think the last deal we did together, I don't think we were able to, it failed on inspection or something like that. We were able to put the deal together, but at the end of the day, both of us were like, all right, that's, it just is what it is. And, and we're able to kind of move forward.
Right. That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come in and talk today. It was nice getting to know a lot about you, especially for the listeners that don't know much about your background. So that's really cool. If somebody's listening and they want to reach out to you to ask questions about real estate or, possibly a change into real estate, or if they're with a team they're not currently happy with or a brokerage they're not currently happy with, how does somebody reach out to you?
So you can call me, you can email me. My email is boyd@boydrudy.com. So very easy, very simple there. Or boydrudy@kw.com. Either one works. So you can email me. You can call me on my cell, 248-388-1680, 248-388-1680, for those of you in the back row. Give me a call. Send me an email, shoot me a text. If you're thinking about leaving your brokerage, or even if you're not, and this is one of the things that I really want to, put out there, is my passion is helping agents grow their business, whether they're in KW or not. Right. Like really that's what I want to focus on is just helping agents be better agents, have a better business. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if we're all better, we're all gonna be better for it. Yeah. So, I've really think that's the one thing that we in our office kind of, all agree on as a management staff, like, we just want people to build better businesses and,
right.
and have better lives, and if we can do that, help you do that in some sort of way, like, let's do it.
For sure. Awesome. Well, it was great talking to you. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, everybody.